I want to, I don't know who's on, but we should be up and running in a few moments with Skype. I want to kind of sort of revisit a couple of things from last week when we were talking about that first verse in John. Yes, ma'am?
We won't be able to get them up there because I think it must be something wrong with the computer. Sorry to interrupt. Do you want me to call Malika?
Yeah.
See if she's on. Okay.
Yeah, she should be on. Because she had called me a second ago.
Who's she?
Huh?
Not
Who's
you.
she?
She wanted to know if
Malika.
she was talking about calling
Oh, okay.
her or not.
Oh. She got me, but I said, who is she? I don't know who she is. I didn't see her ID. Okay, anyway, I really want to revisit some of the things that we had touched on last week and see if there are questions or if there's more clarity needed. I spoke, or we spoke, I should say, concerning the first chapter of John, that first verse. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and we related that to Genesis in the beginning. I thought something very interesting there, and the interesting thing that I saw in relationship to that is as we spoke about that in that second verse, where it says the same was in the beginning with God. What it actually says is beginning was before Elohim. The word same and with, either one of those can be interpreted as before Elohim. So when we look at that, what we're actually seeing is a restating of the creation in what is known as the New Testament. And it also further undergirds what we saw and have been translated from Genesis 1, that beginning was before Elohim. And the thing that's very, very interesting to me is that when Jesus spoke with Nicodemus and said to him, you must be born again, or you must return to beginning. The thing that's interesting to me is that he did not say you must return to Elohim, the one who molded him from the dust. He didn't say that. He said you must return to beginning. And and that in itself made me curious. And the curiosity is if the beginning of Nicodemus, or man himself, the Adam was with Elohim created, whether it be Genesis 1:27 or Genesis 2:7, where it says, in the Lord God took the dust of the earth. Well, either one of those, it should be, if he's returning to some place as the beginning, it should have been to Elohim as opposed to Bereshit, which is beginning. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Why did he not say that? And I think I know the answer, but I need some help with this thing. I think I know the answer. I think the answer is found in verse 3, when it says that all things that were made, or all things were made by him, without him, not anything made that was made. It's talking about everything was formed from beginning. So it's almost like everything that is came out of beginning, but Elohim exercised creative power by calling it into existence, into the world where Elohim existed. You understand what I'm saying? So it existed. It's almost like it existed in another dimension. And when Elohim came into being, it called it in from the other dimension to the dimension that it was in. Because if it were not already formed, then where did it come from? Because if everything is eternal, if nothing has a quote unquote beginning as we talk about beginning, or an end as we talk about end, if everything just is, then regardless of what it is or what it consists of, it consisted of that before it was formed in our minds. It's like the chair consisted of what it consists of in your mind before it consisted of it by virtue of you making it a physical thing.
Mhm.
What is the bar?
Mhm.
Okay, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So every being, not only every being, but every thing, every object, or what is already is, and nothing is to be created in the sense that we think that creation takes place. We think that creation takes place, and we've been taught that creation takes place by taking substance and bringing it together to form something. But the formation of it is already there. It's simply bringing it from one dimension into another. So if that's the case, then every baby that's going to be born is already born. Everyone that's ever going to live is already lived. It's okay. As long as you don't hear a tear or cry, you're fine. If you hear something go boom, then it's time to check it out.
I've heard of that a couple times.
But so everything that is, everything that we think is coming, so it's no such thing as becoming, a continuous becoming, as it is a continuous appearance. Everything is continuously appearing. It's already there. It already exists. Okay? Any questions about that? So
Relate that then to the verse, call those things that be not as though they were. That means calling them into this dimension.
yes.
Because right now I can say there is no apple right there,
Right.
right there. But if I called it from another dimension and it appeared, is that what that means?
Yes. It's like Abraham, we speaking of. Everything that Abraham had been told and shown was already there. It just not had been brought into this dimension. Therefore, he could call those things that were not as though they were, because he not only had he heard with the ears of his heart, but he had also had a vision of what was to be brought into existence for him, meaning brought from another dimension. So when we talk about calling those things that are not as though they were, that's why we just wasting our time, because we've not seen them. We just want it to be. It's like saying, I want another house, so I'm going to call it, into being. That it doesn't work like that. In actuality, we don't begin seeing into the other realm, into the other dimension, and exercise the abilities that we have to bring it into this dimension until we become much more aware of who we are from a spiritual perspective, rather than lend ourselves more so to this physical realm that we have brought into existence. And the more we lean towards the physical realm that we have brought into existence, the more we lean to that realm, the more we have to go to the store and get the apple, as opposed to the apple appearing. It's like, and I'm sure it's more than I've had this experience. Last week when I was facilitating, I began to see things that I had not seen before. And after I finished and we broke, I had some things that I needed to get done, but I was not hungry. I was sitting here talking prior to, I knew I needed to eat, but I wasn't hungry. And I couldn't eat. And it's like when the spiritual awareness is more prevalent than the physical awareness, then you don't feel hungry. Because the spirit is not hungry in terms of needing sustenance to sustain itself. The thing that sustains the spirit is awareness of what it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and I think we experience that in different ways sometimes. Sometimes we get excited over stuff and you lose your appetite. So what causes that to happen? It's an experience that you were not expecting. And the experience that you had was not so much a bodily experience as it was a spiritual excitement. Even the things that excite us are the things that we sometimes desire or have an affinity for, or things that are brought into our lives unexpectedly. And I believe that if the expectation was for the apple to appear, it would. But our expectation for it is not so much for it to appear as it is, we go see if it's going to happen. And even any time that you have that thought of, I'm going to see if it's going to happen, then there's doubt. You know, it's like you cast yourself down from the pinnacle because the angels have charge over thee. That's doubt. So our lives they have to be lived as though we are at the horn or the womb or the opening of beginning, with everything that is being already formed, and there is absolutely nothing that we could even imagine that we wanted that is not already formed. What I'm saying is this: regardless of what you think that you thought of that was not in existence, if it were not there, you couldn't think of it. Because we cannot think beyond Ein Sof. We can't even think to that place of Ein Sof, or the being Ein Sof. The source of the light of all lights. We can't even think to that place or to that. I don't like the word level, but for understanding purposes, we can't do that. And therefore, when we talk about imagination, what we are actually talking about is a source of power that brings to our mind or brings into our sight or our vision an image of something that already is. And if we desire that to be brought into the physical, then we form it. But it's already in existence. Yeah.
I'm thinking how to form the question that you just, from what you just said. No, wait a minute, I'm still thinking.
I'm wondering if, what you did, you prefaced it by saying we have to know who we are spiritually. And tied to something coming into existence then must relate to not my ego, or not because I just want it to be so I can show somebody. It must relate to something that enhances what I'm spiritually conveying, in a sense.
Yeah, something that will enhance man's desire, or the Adam, desire to see from the perspective of beginning, to become aware of beginning. Everything that we do is supposed to be purpose. The purpose of it should be to enhance the Adam's understanding of who it is. See, again, Adam is sort of a way station between Elohim, who brought the Yahweh Elohim, who brought the Adam into being. It's like a way station before the Adam becomes aware of its purpose. It is not Elohim, but it has opportunity to be Elohim. But it is the Adam. And the Adam brought something into existence that will never die. And that is this physical realm. The physical realm is here forever. It's never going into place. But it has to live in balance with the other realm as well. It has to be balanced with both worlds. And we talk about that when we speak of sometimes how, whether it be Native America or other indigenous people, how they live close to the earth and how things are in balance and how they are able to see beyond what the eye in the physical sense can see, and how the entity that we call the human is brought into being by Adam, and the Adam would reach its fullest potential when it begins to glorify, to honor Abum, Father, Mother, when it begins to recognize Father, Mother for who it is, as opposed to creating the Father creating the Father and Mother, or creating the seed separate from the womb. Because if the seed is separate from the womb, then the seed cannot reach fruition. The seed and the womb has to be in the same place in order for the seed to maturate, right? So when we began to grasp that concept, and when we grasp that concept of oneness in every respect, it is at that point that the Adam, or the entity through which the essence of the Elohim flows, becomes the Elohim itself. But it has to be in conjunction with what is in the other realm, meaning what is in that realm of total spirituality. Questions? I need to be pressed. No question.
Okay. I'm just looking at what's on the wall that you're, I think, talking, I don't know what word you use, not around, you're kind of talking from. But it made me think at the moment, so just being logical, if Ein Sof, quote unquote, made or created beginning, then remind me the function of Elohim
Okay.
within that
The framework.
concept of beginning. It's obviously, I mean, I would think it's a structural focused something, but
When I
is that a
look
fair
at
question?
when I look at beginning, I visualize it as the the horn of plenty, the opening to it. That's how I visualize it, as the horn of plenty. Out of the horn of plenty comes everything,
Mhm.
and the first thing out of the horn of plenty was one yet many, meaning Elohim. This being, this spiritual entity, with the ability to bring into existence those things which it encountered while it was in the womb of beginning, and those things which it encountered were those things of order and disorder, darkness and light, and it began to call those things into being after it exited the womb of beginning. And the first things that came into being were heaven and earth, or enlightenment and earth consciousness. And it is the enlightenment is the substance that the Elohim employed to bring into existence all that it created. And the earth consciousness is the sustenance that the atom, which was created by Yahweh Elohim, used to bring everything in existence that it brought into existence. But rather than bring it to in existence with a balance between the earth consciousness and the heavenly consciousness or enlightenment in earth consciousness, it brought it into existence separate from it. If you look at the tree of life, that's enlightenment, that's heaven. If you look at the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that's earth consciousness, that's earth. And instead of bringing the earth consciousness into balance with the enlightenment from which it came, it's separated in its own mind. It's separated, so that it gave life. It is given life to something that is out of balance or out of harmony with the Elohim that created it. Or am I making sense? Because it's not in balance with it.
I'm getting, when you're talking, I'm seeing parallel kinds of things.
Right.
The duality that's beginning to flow.
Right. Yeah, and that's it. Because it says that Elohim was life. And this life was the light of Adam. That's in that fourth verse. Elohim was life, and the life was in Adam. But the life was the light of Adam. In other words, the life that Adam is the light of Elohim. So the life that Adam is the life that it brings to this thing called earth consciousness, or the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And the reason there is so much confusion on a continuous basis is because when Adam makes an attempt to come into balance with its origin, it does it on its own terms. It creates the church. It creates its own God. It uses those things that it brought into being as a barometer for measuring how much you are in balance with the Creator. God wants everybody to be rich. You see, those kind of things. You're blessed if you have all these things that the Adam created, as opposed to recognizing that these things are created because the Adam is exercising its ability to create, but at the same time, the very things that it is created reinforces the idea of being separate from its creator, as opposed to bringing it closer and bringing it to a place of rhythm or balance with the creator. Can you see that? So hopefully, to Richard's point, the idea of returning to beginning is to recognize where we came from. Because if you recognize the need to return to beginning, and you get to that the awareness of beginning, then you, as Yeshua did, recognize that you and the Father are one. Now, this is what he was doing when he said that, because he did not say Father in terms of Father one and Mother over here. You know, it wasn't like that. He said a womb, which is Father, Mother. So what he actually did was enforce the fifth commandment: honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long. But what he did, he recognized, he glorified a womb, as opposed to saying, for this cause shall a man leave it. He returned. That's what he's talking about when he talks about the return to beginning. The return is not a physical thing, of course we know that. It is a sense of awareness. What was it?
So, thou shalt have no other God before me. Meaning, I'm it. This is it. This is all it is. And verse 5, honor me,
Yeah,
the father, mother that I
yeah.
am.
And see, when you look at that, what it's saying is that there is no other Elohim except the Elohim that I create. That's the only Elohim it is. And any Elohim that you create dishonors me. And the Elohim that we create, we don't call it Elohim, but we put it on the cross. But because we do say Jesus 100% God, so we put it on the cross. But we don't recognize it, and again, even putting it on the cross and saying this is our God, this is our Savior over here, is saying that it's over there and we're over here, and we're different than what it is, even though it tells us that we have the same propensity that it has to be the spiritual entity that it was created to be. And when you ask yourself the question, why is it then that one of the Paulinian letters speaks of the superior Adam, or the second Adam, which is actually the superior Adam, and reference the superior Adam as the Messiah, or the Messianic awareness? Why is that so? Why would that be the superior Adam? Because it is in rhythm with a boom. And when it is in rhythm with a boom, it doesn't mean that this fleshly body dissipates or disappears. It simply means that this fleshly body recognizes what it is, where it came from, and it's in continuous balance with the Creator itself. Look at what happened after Yeshua was resurrected. When it was resurrected, what did it do? When it was resurrected, it still had a bodily form, didn't it?
Yes.
And even when it said that I touch me not, I must return to my Father, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is he talking about? I don't believe that he's talking about I'm going upstairs, I'm going up yonder. I don't believe that that's what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that he was talking about I must be in total rhythm with, or deeply aware of, before anything on this earth can touch me. Before in other words, the feminine aspect that you represent is still earthly. This is the spirit that was brought into the earth to help balance things to a point where it doesn't self-destruct, or it does not stay in a state of darkness forever. So let me balance myself with the Father, and after that it doesn't matter, because I am the entity that I was created to be, i.e. Elohim. Because the superior Adam becomes Elohim, or is the Elohim.
Well, I'm just thinking, when he died, or when the body died, I'm wondering what took place between that time and the time that it was raised. Because you said that no one could touch him until he become one with the Father.
That's what he said. Once he was resurrected,
Resurrected.
when Mary attempted to embrace him, he said, "Touch me not, for I am not yet ascended unto the Father."
So what happened between that period when he?
When he said, "Don't touch me."
No, before he said that.
Oh, if memory serves me, what happened? There was a merging of awareness, of power, of energy that took place in the sepulcher, and the merging of that power that took place in the sepulcher gave life to that body in a way that it was supposed to do it from the beginning, right?
Okay.
And once it was resurrected, it obviously was not in total rhythm at that point, but it knew it had to be before it could encounter anything else in this earth that was not in rhythm.
Okay.
And this is the thing. Let's say that this is the Father, And this is the entity that's resurrected. In order for it to honor, pay tribute to glorify, it must be in total harmony with. But it's not in total harmony with at the point of resurrection. It has an opportunity now to say, for this cause shall we leave father and mother. When you look at it from Mary being there, it is no different than the feminine energy being there in the beginning. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother. Now he has the same opportunity to say that. For this cause shall we leave our womb. But rather than say that, he said, no, I'm one with her womb. I'm going, and after that, I can deal with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I'm struggling here. I can see it, but it's very difficult
No,
for me to put it into words.
no, I'd say, well, at the risk of getting it, revealing it if I get it or not, I'd say, yes, I get it. But then I think everybody goes through the same process when they quote unquote die and transition. Yes or no? Maybe it's even related to this sort of after-death experience where people seem to see white light in familiar friends or something. It's all part of a transition to wholeness, if you want to call it that. And so the other, I don't know, maybe this is some dangerous trying to attach understandings to bits and pieces of what you're saying. The other part is, and this seems to be true in Buddhism, and I don't know about Hinduism, that's all, that you have bodhisattvas who choose to come back, so to speak, as part of a teaching, maybe also a process within themselves. Maybe there's a need. So they're here for a period of time. So maybe this was the whole idea of the tomb opening, pulling away the stone, all of that was for us. But the process itself is natural. You know what I'm trying to say?
I think so.
Okay. That's about as far as I can get. I think I know what I'm trying
The
to say.
process is natural in that everyone has opportunity to move in that direction. But Tikkun takes place. There are some corrections that has to be made. When you transition and you see what's going on in the other realm, that's fine. That's all well and good. But it is in this place that you have to come into balance, where the correction must be made. Because it is in this place where the correction was, where the disconnect was made. I'm trying to remember who told me or made mention of it, maybe in here, I'm not sure, of some kid who was in this family that was mistreating her. And she said, I cannot believe that I chose to come back to this. I chose this family. And I can't remember who said that to me, but it was a kid who should not, have any knowledge of or understanding of that, but readily recognize that this is what I chose. I wonder why. Is what the kid said. So
That's not Jamil.
so it's if someone told me that during the course of this week.
Or
Go ahead, dear.
Jamil or Nick.
Yeah, but that's what I was, it was related to me in that way. Whoever I was speaking to, we were talking about Indigo Kids, and that's where it came up in the course of that. But anyway, I believe that it is on this side where the correction takes place, and Yeshua made the corrections and showed us how to make the corrections so that we could be one with the Father. Now, I do believe, as you said, that when transition takes place, whether the corrections are made or not, that you see the light, except after this experiences and stuff. But to get to the place where we were supposed to from beginning, you go through the thing that Yeshua went through. And Jesus, he was not the only one who went through that. There have been countless of other people who have gone through it. Some have been recorded in history, and some of them have not been recorded in history. But he was not the only one who had gone through that. I mean, even before he did it, the other guy did it. Methuselah did it. Moses did it. Moses did it at his highest point of elevation. It says that Elohim rocked him to sleep on the backside of the mountain. that he transitioned at this highest place of elevation. And the correction that he had to make was the disobedience that he expressed when he struck the rock in the water. And that's a whole different ballgame. So I really want to get into that. I really want to stick to us trying to see how the bodily form of the atom is the opportunity to become, for the atom to bring into being a tree of life. Because if you don't act on what you think, you don't bring it to fruition, right? But if you act on it and bring it to fruition, that means you gave life to it, right? So where did the life come from? You. It goes to what you asked me earlier. Like the baby.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
If a baby...
What,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so, but right here, then sort of the definition you're using of life is, if I'm looking at this as a sort of continuum, a process, the post-Elohim life.
Yes, that's exactly, yes. The life that I'm talking about now emanates from Elohim. The light of Elohim is the life of Adam.
Right.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Alan raised a question, a legitimate question. If I've made several times the statement that when the baby exits the womb, it's not living. She said, if the baby is not living, then how does the baby move in the womb? Because it is using your energy. That's how it is no different than this TV is plugged into this wall. There's a socket, right? And it's using the energy from this surge protector. But I could just as easily take it out of the surge protector and plug it directly into the wall, right? But even though I take it out, there's still energy left in it, but it's not living. You see? Am I making sense? Now keep in mind, there's enough energy left in that child from you when that birth takes place for it to be brought to life on its own.
Kick-started.
Yeah, for its own life to enter it. Because if it goes for a period of time without being jumped off or kick-started, it won't be. Can you see that? And see, this is the thing that I think that we see it too much from a physical perspective as opposed to a manifestation of something from the spiritual, and that is the umbilical cord. If you can see an umbilical cord that's attached to the whole of this earth, that goes all the way back to the other realm, and through this umbilical cord comes the light that is our life, and what we do with it is our choice. And either if that umbilical cord is severed, we call that death, which it can't be severed, but it's severed in our minds, of course. We call that death. But with that life flowing through there, we can choose to have the life that we are, or we can choose to have the life that we create, which is ups and downs, which is anger and joy, choices we make, right? Mm-hmm. So we are the ones who make the decision on how we're going to use the life that comes through that umbilical cord. And that umbilical cord that's attached to the woman and the baby is simply a reminder of where nourishment comes from, feminine energy. It is the female that nourishes. And also it also tells me something else as well, that not only is the female there to nourish while it's in the womb, reaching the point of birth, but it also tells me that mammary glands are there to continue that nurturing once it exits the body until it's brought to a state where it can function on its own.
Yes.
Now, if you look at that and see it from a spiritual perspective, then that coming from the womb of beginning, there is a umbilical cord that's attached. And the umbilical cord that's attached is the awareness that's there about who we are. And the Adam chose to sever that umbilical cord when it recognized that it had a womb of its own in terms of feminine. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother. It could have just as easily recognized who it was and began to bring into being the tree of knowledge of good and evil, bring it to a place of life and enlightenment, as opposed to continuing it, allowing it to continue in its confusion. And see, it has always been purpose for the Adam to function as the Elohim by bringing order to things, for lack of a better term. That's why darkness covered the deep. In the beginning, darkness was first, because the Adam was to bring order to that. Even when Jesus talked to Nicodemus, he said, you must be born of the water and the Spirit. Well, that word for water there is the same word that's used for water in Genesis when it talks about the flowing waters of darkness or the confusion. It's talking about spiritual confusion. Go ahead.
What spanked us to bring us life to this consciousness? Because you said a baby doesn't
Your
live.
circumstances.
Okay.
So, okay, I'm just saying, at one point, I remember Nick had said, and I'm sure we've said it different ways, this world will go on producing more and more and more and more lives, which is basically confusion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we are. We're the product of confusion.
And our circumstances is what brings us to a
So what
place.
you just said was Adam could have done it right in the beginning, so to speak. None of this would have happened. None of this was needed to happen because there was no confusion. There could have avoided that, so to speak.
And still
Say
been
in quick
creative.
terms?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't mean we wouldn't be,
No, right.
but the
But
term
we'd be
we and the
different.
term be would be a hell of a lot different.
Oh,
Excuse my
yes.
French.
Right.
Okay?
But it would be a heck of a lot different.
So because nothing's going to die and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we talk about no one woke up one morning and say, I'm so good, I'm going to go. No, I'm so confused. I don't know how to get beyond this dilemma that I'm facing, so I need some order in my life. And then you begin this search for order. And if you go to, if you get lazy with it, you can go to this place that you perceive to be order called church, and you end up more confused. But you pretend that you're not, because everyone else in there is pretending that they're not. And after you've been here for 5 years, you mean to tell me you still have the same old questions? Well, you're giving me the same old stuff.
But
You know?
the instinct, but this is why we said what you said so much longer ago, the real sin is in the pulpit, not in the pew,
Yeah.
because of the control thing, the stifling of the journey. But the instinct, so to speak, to go to church is the right one, in the sense that you're trying to advance your spiritual journey or understanding. The fact that you could say you went to the wrong environment and it totally disoriented you and captured you, whatever, that's a whole other thing that comes after the fact. But it's an indication that that instinct, that drive, is fundamental.
See, it is like the whole concept of churches call out ones. And you go to that because you are indeed searching for order in your life, or light. And so it is, the church is necessary in that it brings you to that point. What you do after that is up to you. So it's like if it were not for the church, then would you be where you are in terms of your search? You see? The other thing is that there was always a bit of truth in a lie. Always. So in order for it to exist, it has to have a sliver of truth in it, a sliver of light in it. And depending on, what denomination you deal with, that determines what sliver of light that you're attached to.
It's all in how bad you want it.
Well, not necessarily all in how bad you want it. I believe that there are in every generation, there are those who were brought into the earth to do exactly what we are doing. But they didn't. I sincerely believe that just as the Adam had opportunity, that the Mayans had the same opportunity. When the Mayan priest told the tribe, congregation, however you want to term it, that he had been shown that there were men with white skin coming across the ocean in ships, and that they would be destroyed, so they need to move deeper into the jungle, and they didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there was an opportunity.
Okay.
I believe that every generation has an opportunity.
Okay.
But what do you do with the opportunity? I give you a case in point. We talked about how adamant we were about not missing the 21st, 2012, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we were adamant about that. And the night off, we talked about balancing the weather, right? Tell me when the last time it's 27 degrees in October. It's been so long. You see?
Yeah.
How many hurricanes have we had this year? 0. You know, so the epicenter of the desire for balance is, this is what I'm saying. The energy for balance is emanating from the epicenter of the desire for balance. That's what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the whole idea again goes right back to desire. So I do believe in every generation, and what happens is there are those who are here to do that in every generation. However, they face the same obstacles that we face and choose to, well, you know, that's too hard, I'm not going to do that. And at some point, someone has to say, regardless of what the consequences are, I'm going to do the right thing. You see, someone has to take the lead to do that. And when that happens, then others' energies are drawn to that place, or that, well, not so much that person as it is that desire. So that's
Yeah, I would say it's sort of like, I don't know quite how to articulate it, because I get too many bits and pieces here. But not everybody is to say it in a rather silly, simple way, not everybody is a leader. But when you have the leader emerge, so to speak, it creates an environment that frees other people to go in that direction. I don't mean they have to follow that leader,
Right.
but they're, when someone, raises a subject that no one talks about, suddenly it's easier to talk about.
right.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Like the sense of
So I always
homosexuality.
thought my function was.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we take ourselves too seriously. Why do we have expressions like that? So you have somebody in the room every once in a while, and then so everybody just breaks open, they relax, they laugh, or they get all upset and go home because they can't. So not everybody has that function. And it's not a question of one has more value than the other, it's just,
Right.
that's what we put on it.
Yeah.
And that's where we get all screwed up. Oh, I gotta follow this guy, or lady, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and blah, blah, blah.
And when in essence you're not following anyone in terms of person, you're
Right.
actually seeking understanding of concepts. And the concept that you're seeking to understand is you.
But the trouble is you attach yourself to someone else's energy, so to speak,
Yeah.
and think, how do I get some of that in me, instead of saying, oh, you could do it, I can do it. You don't.
And see, the other part of that is this. The one who does that has to be also the one who says to you, you are just as I am. You can do anything that I can do. We are the same. It's simply that I'm the facilitator, but it doesn't make me more important to you than you, because if I were a facilitator and didn't have anyone to facilitate to, then I don't exist. There's no point in me existing.
Right.
So we are important, not equal. We just important. Period. You know, everything is important.
And I think traditionally, that's shared and expressed in a very quiet way. It's not zoot suits and big mega churches by any means. We know that. It's just a quiet person that shares something with you and says, well, go on. You can do it.
And see, the thing about it is that when we seek the tree of knowledge, the answers from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that's when we end up emulating someone as opposed to being who we are.
Right.
You know, if you walk into the Methodist church and you look at that pastor in the pulpit and you begin to move to other Methodist churches, you see exactly the same thing. Because whoever's considered the big dog, that's everybody try to emulate. You go to the Baptist church, the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, so it's emulating that leadership thing, and it really is not. I don't even like to term that as leadership. I rather term it as being oppression, because that's exactly what it is. Because it's a type of oppression that presses the life of you so deeply inside of you until you struggle to find it once you began seeking it. It's very difficult to dig that deep inside of you, and that is the reason it is so important that whoever the facilitator is recognizes the struggle with that, so that things can be presented in such a way that's not necessarily make it easy, but make it easier for you not only to access it, but to understand what you're accessing. Do you see?
Yeah, and I think it can take it can take the form where it's distracting and you're attracted, maybe you go along, but sooner or later you go, as opposed to the one that tries to control and repress, and somewhere in there it's going to start making you feel guilty.
Yeah.
Because how do you feel that gap? Well, something wrong with me, right? And that's the ultimate.
And when
Right.
you say that, I'm thinking of the experiences that I've had in thinking that something is wrong with me. And before there was a foundation, or before there was a great new faith on understanding how we are now, there was always me going back to the book. I mean, I could say something that I knew was there, and because all of the others were saying it different and giving an understanding of it that makes sense, I had to go back and check myself. And I kept doing that, checking myself to make sure that I was saying the things that are actually there.
But that takes a certain courage to go, this just doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
and to say it publicly.
And
Everybody's quietly on Wednesday night in Bible study, and then they go home and they're like, what?
but see, I
Exactly.
remember distinctively
But
the
they'll say
first
it.
time that I had that experience. The first time I had the experience was on a Saturday morning, and we were at a Ministerial Alliance meeting, and there were
I remember those.
nothing and 11 pastors and a few ministers, and I mean, pretty much every pastor in the area was there. And this guy's hand was swollen, and I may have related this to you before. And I said to him, "Do you believe the scripture when it talks about healing?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay. We go deal with your hand." And before I could get the words out of my mouth, the hand was not swollen anymore. So one of the ministers said, who was observing, said, all that went out with the apostles. And I said, but it just happened. And my response to the rest of them was, you should have told me that before I saw it happen. It's too late now. And when I had my experience in Haiti with the guy with the fracture and saw what happened with that, the same thing, where that didn't happen. You know, those kinds of things were designed not to shake me, even though I thought they were at that time. They were there to strengthen me. They strengthened my resolve because I saw it. Now, there are those who see things in the scriptures and see things that happen, but they will keep it to themselves because they're afraid of being challenged.
And isolated too.
Yeah, when enough people challenge you
Really?
or isolate you,
Yeah.
you feel like, well, I don't want to do that anymore. But see, I was just the opposite. You ostracize me because of what I see, and I know what I see is the truth.
But doesn't that give you quiet, what do you want to call it, confidence, assuredness? So I could understand people would be quiet because they know it wouldn't be understood. I mean, that's behind a lot of these esoteric, go way back to the martial arts thing. No one talked about the stuff that really goes on at the higher levels because you're not touching anybody and you're doing all kinds of things. And you're not trying to put on a carnival act to an audience that wouldn't understand it, right? I mean, that was the whole idea of the parables and the way Jesus spoke. He tried to say things in a way that would get to multi-levels.
And that's exactly what the
So
facilitator
it
does.
could be used, but I'm sure he would have stood up there and just said, let's just eat, if he thought nobody was going to get it. Right? Just bring the fish out, shut up.
And that's what I'm talking. I can remember I was
We'll talk
I
about
almost
tomorrow.
called the name of the church. I was going there to preach, and I was doing this pastor's anniversary, and I said, you know what, God, I'm tired of people railing on me. I'm just tired of it. Everywhere I go, when I finish, they're like, you know what? We don't know nothing he talked about. They ain't in the scripture, but it's there. So I said, I'm gonna write me a sermon, and and I remember it was the 23rd Psalm. And I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna talk about the 23rd Psalm and how the pastor leads you through that deep valleys, rather. So I go there and I start preaching, and all of a sudden I forget everything. Paper in front of me, I'm down here on the floor. Yeah, and my paper up here on the podium. Yeah, I'm like, oh. And everything just leaves me. And all of a sudden, everything that I was not going to say started coming out of my mouth. Everything. And understandings that I never had before started coming out of my mouth. And after that, at the end of it, I said, I told him what I had purpose in my heart that I was going to do, but I said, it doesn't matter anymore. And from that point, I began to move. So at some juncture, that has to take place with each person. I can't make that decision for you. And that is the reason I never said, you got to leave your lane. That's the reason I said, that's on you. You do what you do. That's the reason that's the reason we are where we are, because we cannot afford to have people follow us. You don't leave because I left. You don't do it because I do it. You do what you see. You do what resonates with you. If it doesn't resonate with you, then my expectation is for you to either keep reading it, keep hearing, keep listening, keep searching until it does resonate.
And that's what you told me.
That's all, and I've always felt like that. And from a little boy up, you cannot, says Rosa Richard, you cannot make people believe what you don't believe. They might pretend to believe it, but they know you don't. People, if you don't believe it, people sitting out there in those mega places don't believe what's coming out that pulpit. They know it's not true. It doesn't resonate with them, but it makes them feel better about themselves because they can say, I was at church Sunday, stuff like that.
And
or I belong to something.
And the rest of the carnival is so full of activities and distractions that you got all that other stuff too.
Please,
What is it, huh? What?
don't make me ask this question.
I ain't gonna make you. I'm gonna let you. I ain't gonna make you.
I just want to
I'm
know,
gonna give you the space
and
to
I've
ask.
asked them already,
Uh-huh.
and I know it's far off your lesson, but then it is never far off your lesson. The preachers of LA.
Why'd I know you were gonna bring that up?
Just touch.
I don't. Okay. First of all, I cannot speak to that
Okay.
because I've not seen it and chose not to.
Hmm.
It has been related to me from Imani. She thinks it's hilarious, based on what she's telling me, it probably would be hilarious if it was not so serious.
Yeah.
You don't have to see it though.
You know,
You already know.
I think Richard described it without describing it earlier when he made reference to a carnival atmosphere. That's, you know, that kind of a thing. Based on what she said to me, there's no substance there at all. It is. See, this is the thing. I have this crazy belief that the priest, if you want to call it, the holy man, or the enlightened one, however you want to term it, I have this crazy belief that they don't make a spectacle of themselves. Neither do they project themselves. They simply do what they do. And if you recognize it, fine. If you don't, that's okay. Because what is being done has nothing to do with you as an individual, but it has to do with everything as it pertains to mankind. So I think shows like that is simply revealing the impotence of ministry, of pastoral ministry, how impotent it truly is.
So the light is being shed on that.
Yeah, so that's what I see. Because if you are strong, you don't strong. I don't mean strong in being stronger than someone.
Right.
If you know what you're doing, you don't have to tell anybody. You know, I detest people who walk around. I'm a Christian, saved by grace. Yeah, you don't have to tell. I'm scared of people like that. They get ready to rip you off. I'll sell you something. You know, I'm serious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they got a cross on their truck and they come to cut your grass, get somebody that ain't got no cross, because they gonna charge you twice as much. So those are the kinds of things. I just don't. I can't speak to it from experience, but I can speak to it from what I've been told. Okay, and keep in mind that I have interacted with pastors from everywhere, in terms of denomination and geography. So I know what goes on.
You know, and
So,
you know the show. I know you
Yeah,
know. You don't
I
have
know
to
what
see
goes
it.
on. But
You guys beat me up a little bit last week when I was talking about that, because you were saying, to a certain extent, okay, but to have a show like that might provide an opportunity for somebody somewhere to better understand some of that carnivalness,
Mm-hmm.
and that's an opportunity for them to maybe ask themselves
In other words,
questions.
there's a reason for it to be there,
and I
in
think,
spite of.
yeah,
Well, to me, that's,
Well, now,
it's a,
I do think that's real. The reason for it to be there,
Yeah.
I do think is the exposure.
Yeah.
Not exposure in that we expose you so you can be drawn, but exposure in that this is what they're really
See
about,
what it
y'all.
really is.
This is what this is. This is a game. That's all this is. This is a game. And each year there are those who do surveys to find out what people are interested in, and that's the theme for the year. And you begin to see them appear on boards. That's no coincidence that all of these slogans begin to appear on these outside marquees. That's not coincidental at all. And the whole idea of God giving you stuff that does not resonate with the scriptures at all. That's that's where I am with that. But anyway, I think that
Our God must be prejudiced, because he sure give you a lot and don't give me a lot, or
yeah.
get into all that
Yeah, what's
stuff.
up with that?
Yeah.
and see, the other thing about that is also what you begin to understand, when going back to what Evelyn was asking earlier concerning Jesus and I being in touch and Mary being there. The other thing is that the I don't know any other way to say this other than say it. The church is is homosexual. It's a homosexual entity, because it gives no expression of need to a female. It suppresses the feminine energy. It's all about the male. It's not. Hello, come on, help me. Am I right?
In terms of-
You see it, Denise?
I just don't want to denigrate homosexuals.
No,
No, seriously, it was a thought I was thinking.
but actually,
With the church.
and actually, it's not a denigration as much as if you read the first chapter of Romans,
Well, that's not,
you will find that's what it talks about. The manifestation of that comes because of change of truth for life. Now, it doesn't mean that when I say it's homosexual, I'm talking about in the sense that the very thing that it denigrates, that's what it is. That's what I'm saying. The very thing that it says should be stoned to death, aside from all the other stuff, is the very thing that it is. Because it's male dominated. It's all about the man. The women are just there because they're in greater numbers than the males, but it's a male dominated thing. That's what I'm saying. And that is the reason
it's probably different.
they had to
say.
disassociate Mary from Jesus so that it could remain male dominated. You see where I'm coming from?
Right.
So in that regard, I'm saying that. So we have to,
Well, I mean, you're meaning that in the sense of, as opposed to heterosexual, as opposed to balance.
balance, yes, as opposed to
So
balance,
there might be another way to say it that
Yeah.
doesn't denigrate
homosexual.
individuals.
Because I don't mean to denigrate homosexuals at all. I think that, well, that's a very positive thing there, and that I can deal with from that perspective if I have to. And one of them I just put out there, suppose that there is balance. That there's these lesbians and there are these guys, and they're balanced each other.
Make an interesting point though, because if you take, it's what is it, misogyny, is that the right? I don't know how it's pronounced exactly. If you take that far enough, that is what you get. You have nothing left but men. Because
Yeah.
only men are acceptable, so that it would be who you engage with. So I get that, but it's almost like a different animal from.
But I'm comfortable with, I think last week, were you here last week? Anyway, the last time you said, if you want to think of it this way, God allows it.
Yeah.
So it must have a purpose. And if most things tend to have a teaching quality and a what do you want to call it, a learning thing too, behavior.
Yeah.
So there's something, and if you stop looking at it so microcosmically, get the lens macro, and you're looking at the culture, the community, and it's in that. So it's telling us something about our society, our culture, the larger sense. Stop focusing on individuals and understand maybe, and if nothing else, it's there because it's a manifestation of a, I don't know what words to use.
Well,
First sentence.
we see,
Something real in the sense that it's there. If it's,
we struggle with that because of how society portrays it,
yeah.
as opposed to how other cultures see it. You remember the other week when I talked about the Native Americans and read the passage from the culture, how they dealt with that?
Yeah.
You know, it is we who have taken a whole segment of humans and in our own minds degraded them. That's sick. That's far more sick than anything you could attribute to the people who you just degraded. Something's, and when you do that, you're doing that to yourself.
Well, I mean, come on.
You know, so
We did it to black people. We did it to. We just the focus is just moving around.
see, it's and honestly,
I gotta be
in
better
saying
than
what
you.
you just
I gotta
said,
be better than something.
it triggered something that everything is coming to a head now. I mean, and everything is coming to, you're beginning to see all of these people who have been pushed into the background. Now we are seeing the need to bring balance to everything. And you can't bring balance to anything unless you see the imbalance in it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's where we are with that. But where I started in talking about the Adam and the Elohim, I believe that we are closer to the place of balance for the Adam than man has seen in quite some time. I believe that. I believe that we have a greater opportunity than we have experienced in quite some time. And I say we, I'm talking about the human as opposed to we. the
Yeah.
group.
Well, I would, in my lifetime, which is the me, I certainly feel that, given what we understood the 60s, 50s to be. But I guess I have this little notion that it's a heartbeat. And if the earth is eternal, then it's always going to be in and out of that opportunity. But
Well,
that's the function. The question is, if you almost thought about it like we are little molecules or something, we can escape that, or you can be trapped by it. I don't know how to say that.
I don't think
you know
you
what I'm
would-
trying to
I
say.
don't
So the
think you-
function is really for you.
I don't think it would be forever in and out of it. I think that the opportunity is there for the tree of knowledge of good and evil to be transformed into the tree of life. I think the opportunity is there, and if it is a heartbeat, and I do believe it, that the earth does pulsate, the universe does, that it pulsates in rhythm with the Creator. That's the pulsation of it all.
But by definition, if it reached a point of a tipping point, whatever it was, then what's the function of the earth?
That's to be seen. That's to be seen.
You don't need it anymore as a separate something. You know?
Well, the reason I say that's to be seen is because I remember readily that, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth. You know, what does that mean? I don't think that we have opportunity to see that because we can't see us. I mean, what's the point in seeing it when you don't even see yourself? And it may very well be that when we do see ourselves, that we will see it. So it's like a baby looking for a nursery. Baby don't know what a nursery is.
No,
You know, what's the function of a nursery? That baby doesn't know. You see? But when the baby becomes aware of that, of who it is, now it realizes what the nursery. Even though it can't express it necessarily, it knows that's where it sleeps, that's where it is changed, you know, that's where it plays, those kind of things. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So, and I think that's where we are. That's where we are. We are forever children until we cease to be human. We are forever children until we cease to be human. When we come to the realization of the item that we are, then we begin to mature. See, maturity is not necessarily how your body is made. Maturity is a manifestation of it, maybe, but maturity is also how you perceive things. Because you know, the body was not designed to deteriorate, but it does because of the way we think. The disease, cancer, is about confused cells, isn't it? There's a confusion there. So that's where it all comes from. So if when we bring up order to who we are, our thinking, our perception of things, then we bring order to everything, do we not? So healing is not about, you know, stopping a hand from swelling or taking a tumor out of you as much as it is about bringing order to the confusion.
Well, if my thoughts are in order, everything else falls in line.
And the thing, you're right. And the struggle with that is because of the external things that we come in contact with on a continuous basis.
But there are, if I can believe, people in history who have, maybe they've gone ahead and died, so to speak, but they didn't care, so to speak. What was important to them to be in balance was in balance. The fact that they might have still had the tumor wasn't a big deal, because the whole understanding of what death was, etc. was. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I mean, I've read plenty of that.
And I see, and I agree with that. But I see how I see how Carla struggled to bring her thinking into balance. And there were times when it was very, very difficult for her to do that. So she would make phone calls and we'd talk it out, bring it back. And I remember distinctively when she says to me, I don't need my family pitying me because that's negative energy. I don't need them feeling sorry for me. I need you to bring them together and talk to them. So her whole family came together, Granny Faye, and I talked to them about what she was dealing with, and discouraged anything, any thoughts, or any conversations of a negative nature. And that in itself began to help regulate the way she thought. And her thinking began to manifest in her body. I remember when she had a chest tube in, after one of her surgeries, she had a chest tube in, and the doctor said she would be there for a few days, and she said, no, I'm going home in the next day or two. And when they came in to take the chest tube out with the chest tube, it was stuck. And they thought that it was attached to something internally. And when they x-rayed her, it wasn't. She had healed around it that quick. Her skin had healed around the chest tube. And they were amazed by it, but now that I think back, it was the order of her thinking. You see, it was the order of her thinking that brought that to be. So that to me is a classic example of not so much the power that we have, but a classic example of who we really are. You know, this is who we are. And for that to have transpired so quick, and even after they removed it, they had to surgically remove it. After they removed it, it wasn't long, like less than 48 hours. She was here. She had tenderness.
Well, you can't even tell she had cancer. You look at Carla.
So so when you talk about getting your thoughts in order, it's the struggle has not been her thinking it right, ordering it, as much as it has been having to be cognizant of those external statements, those external things, whether it be from a doctor or someone who has heard about it. You see? And by virtue of her being home, it is less opportunity for that to happen to someone who is, like, for example, on the job every day. You see? So there's less opportunity for it to happen. So you combat that by internalizing the desire to keep things in order. I listen at people talk, and some of the people who I listen to talk are people who are facilitators, and some of the things that they say grates on me because of the way they're stated. It's like a sneaky way of being negative without being negative, and sometimes I touch it and sometimes I don't. And I'm beginning to see that if the facilitators don't begin to order the thinking, it's going to be that much more difficult for the one who comes to the facilitator to do that. You see? And unlike with Jesus now, even though he was very positive and enlightening and guiding, the ones who followed him did not buy into everything he said. And no one wants to admit that. They did not buy into what he taught. Because if they had bought into it, they wouldn't have been stuck.
Well, we knew they didn't understand it all.
Yeah, well, for a good portion of them, they didn't even believe it. I mean, Thomas even stated And he's one of the best writers of what transpired during that period. And even he had to be convinced. And I think that, and I bring that in to say, when I talk about even some of the facilitators, the way we talk, it has nothing to do with lack of desire, has nothing to do with commitment. It has everything to do with how much of society is interwoven into our being, and how we have to constantly deal with that.
Well, we were like that with you.
Yeah.
You know, when you first started, we like, we observed, I mean, we had to make sure that,
You always do what I say.
okay.
No, but I do
But we
understand what you're
question.
saying. Yeah,
We-
and that's the key.
Yeah.
See, you can look at this thing in the first chapter of John and relate it to the first chapter of Genesis, and if you don't have opportunity to raise the questions, you would never get it. That's the thing. You got and see the arrogant idea of not questioning me at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. That's ego. That's I don't know what I'm talking about no way. So don't ask me any questions to embarrass me. How can the question about what you said embarrass you unless you obviously don't know what you're talking about?
Exactly.
How can it embarrass you? How can you perceive that someone is attempting to embarrass you when they seek an understanding? I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, I'm done.
So let me get this straight. For us, bringing balance and controlling your mind or controlling your thoughts. Basically, a lot of that deals with basically what are we indulge in, the positive energy, the negative energy, whoever we're around, whatsoever. Well, I found that I got a lot from the story that you were saying about Carla. That was really nice. Got a lot from that one, but I just want to make sure I'm understanding that question correctly.
Say that again, man.
I said, force balancing and force controlling your mind and your thoughts and bringing balance to all of that. All that really pretty much deals with the positive and negative energy that you are around.
Yes. And see, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, that was it.
Okay, yeah, it is. It does have a lot to do with that. And see, you've heard the term that happiness is a choice.
Happiness is a choice?
Yes. So is the energy you're around. That's a choice you make.
Yeah.
Now, trying to think of a fairly decent way to say this. Nice way.
Why?
Sometimes, once in my life, right?
Clear is one thing, but decent? Where's that word
Sometimes-
come from?
The negative energy that we have chosen to be around is because of selfishness. We don't want to be away from that person or those people, even though we know they're negative. And we know that whatever they say or do is not in our best interest. But still, we want to remain in that setting. And that in itself, then, see, this is the thing. How can you make a decision that you're going to stay in the water, but you want to be dry? I mean, does that make sense?
Yes.
How you going to stay in the water and be dry? So how you going to be positive if you live in negative, in the midst of negative energy? How you going to be light if you don't ever flip the switch? You know, how you go, you're in a dark room. So you refuse to flip the switch, but you want light. I mean, there are things that we do that reflect what we really desire subconsciously, as opposed to what we say consciously. For example, when we look at the whole concept of being the image of, the image is light. The thing that we're the image of is light, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's a projection of unity, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in him there is no what? Darkness.
Right.
So at some point we have to make decisions, don't we?
Yes.
And rather than make decisions, guess what we do? We make excuses.
Excuses.
We make excuses. And see, I'm sorry. I'm not the one to just be in the midst of darkness or negative energy. I'm not gonna do it. Yeah, I'm there when I'm talking to people, when I'm counseling, but as far as me going to 188 Phoebe Place and living in it, no. Not gonna happen. I'll just be gone. I can't do that. And I do not believe that anyone should subject themselves to that, because what you're actually doing is hurting yourself. You're minimizing your self-worth when you do that. Does that make sense to you? So anyway, if you minimize your self-worth, then you don't get to a place where you begin to realize who you are. Because if you minimize your self-worth, you don't think you deserve it. That's just the way it is. Okay. If there are no more questions, I'm done. Did you get that, Matt? That clear? Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I'm done.
The truth of the light. That one. In the light of the truth reminds us that we are on a journey of awareness. And that knowing who we are helps mankind know who it is. Amen.
Amen.